Well, Dr. Andy Wakefield, thank you so much for being here. Been a fan for many, many years, watching your work. What a pleasure to be in this wonderful summit with you today.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm mostly excited about the people that have yet to meet you and know about your work and your experience and where you came from, and even bringing you up to today. Can you share with our new viewing audience a little bit about your background?
Sure, I'll try and give you a potted summary. I graduated in medicine in 1981 from St Mary's Hospital Medical School in London, where my family, 6 generations of my family, have trained as doctors.
Wow.
And I went on to become a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons. I was a gastroenterologist with a specific interest in Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, 2 epidemic diseases, particularly Crohn's disease and in children. And I ran a big research team at the Royal Free Hospital in London.
Wow.
There were 19 of us researching those diseases. And then it was a very exciting time. We were making some interesting discoveries, and we were looking at the possible role of viruses, specifically measles virus, in causing inflammatory bowel disease. And then 1995, after a series of publications in The Lancet, I got a call from parents who said my child was perfectly normal. They were developing, they had speech, language, interaction with their siblings. And then they had an MMR vaccine, and it all went. Almost overnight, the lights in their eyes went out. They lost their speech, they lost their ability to communicate, and they were in pain. Parents would say, I know they're in pain. I'm his mother. I know he's in pain. He can't communicate anymore, but I just know. And I said, well, look, I know nothing about autism. How can I help? And they said, well, my child has terrible gastrointestinal problems, and no one will take them seriously. The doctors and nurses have just said, well, that's part of autism. Move on, have another child, put them in a home.
Common answer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I hear this all over the world now.
Yes.
But the story was so consistent and coherent that I thought we really must investigate these children. Irrespective of their autism, they have underlying bowel disease until proven otherwise. And so we scoped them. I put together a team of some of the best pediatric gastroenterologists in the world at that time. And we scoped them. The parents were right. The children had an inflammatory bowel disease. And when we treated that bowel disease, as we would treat Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis with anti-inflammatories and diet, then we found a dramatic improvement, not just in the bowel disease symptoms, but also the behavior, the cognitive function. And it wasn't just that the children felt better from being out of pain. It was much more than that. They started using words they hadn't used for 5 years. It was an extraordinary thing. It was rather like that story of Lorenzo's oil. There was just an awakening. And as long as we maintained the bowel condition under control, then there was continued improvement. But if there was a relapse in the gastrointestinal symptoms, then the behavioral symptoms would deteriorate accordingly. And so there was this marked sort of evidence of a gut-brain connection, which was very, very interesting. And so when they said my child regressed after a vaccine, we had a professional and moral obligation to take that very seriously, which I decided to do, and many of my colleagues did not want to do. You can't question MMR vaccine. Well, yes, you can, actually. That's part of our job as academics, is to question these things.
Yes.
Not operate on the assumption that they're safe because the Department of Health or the drug companies tell us they're safe. I mean, we know where that leads us.
Absolutely.
And so I took that on, and when you do that, when you challenge the pharmaceutical industry or you challenge government policy, there is no price you will not pay. And so that was an interesting moment in my career. When I came to America.
And you paid dearly.
Continued the work, and eventually, they sort of caught up with me there and did whatever they could to destroy the work we were doing. So the research was sabotaged and came to an end, and that was a great shame. But over the years, people had come to me from industry and from the regulatory agencies like the CDC, like the FDA, and said, we've done a terrible thing, here's the evidence. and I became a repository for whistleblowers. And so I thought, right, I've always been interested in making movies, so I'm going to turn these into movies. I'm going to become your worst enemy. And that's what I've done ever since. So it started with documentaries and more recently moved into narrative feature films. So exciting times.
That's amazing. And so out of those original researchers, how many people did you actually end up with when you started?
None. Not a single one.
You, yourself, and you.
There were 19 of us. Most of them moved on to other jobs. My colleagues who did stand by me have since moved on. People didn't want to touch it. It was the third rail. It was just something that you can challenge the pharmaceutical industry. You can call into question the safety of their drugs. But when it comes to vaccines, you dare not go there.
Isn't that interesting?
It is. I think, and it's become
mind-boggling.
It is. It's antithetical to science that you can't question things, number one. And so that makes me want to question them twice as hard. But when you've listened to parents who are telling you they're not anti-vaccine, they've took their children to be vaccinated on time, they're merely reporting exactly what happened to their children. When that story is denied, then you become very, very suspicious.
Of course.
And so what I did is, because it was my background as an academic and as a physician, I thought, if I'm going to get involved in this, then I need to understand precisely what happened. So I went back and I read every single pre-licensing study that was done for MMR, measles-containing vaccine, single vaccine, measles rubella vaccine. And I thought, I must be doing them a disservice. I must have missed something. There must be something out there where they did a proper randomized controlled, placebo-controlled clinical trial of large populations, followed for long periods, because you're giving something to healthy children. It's not as if you're dealing with stage 4 cancer where perhaps the risk-benefit profile is different. You have to be super, super concerned about safety when you intend to give this preventative to every child in the world. And so I was astonished. And then when I found that the early trials of safety and efficacy were conducted not in healthy children, but in children who were severely physically or mentally handicapped in homes, in institutions in America and the UK. This was extraordinary, that they were the guinea pigs because their lives were somehow
unbelievable,
meaningless, they were expendable, and that's where they conducted the clinical trials. And in some case deliberately induced disease in these children to see how they might be protected or react, and covered it up accordingly. So when you discover that, when you discover the
once you know,
underbelly,
you can't unknow, right? It's there. It's
so I became determined. The dean at the medical school said, well, he took me aside one day and said, if you continue this vaccine safety research, it won't be good for your career. Now, the problem with me is that it made me want to work twice as hard. And he was right. It wasn't good for my career, but here we are.
Well, the millions of people that you have saved, their children, and also encouraged them to do the deep dive and the research. But I think the one thing that is brilliant is we now, post the last 3.5, 4 years, you have been able to, through entertainment, educate people where their brains are open and their minds are open and they're sitting there looking at this, right? So that is the brilliance of what you're doing. Now, your new movie is out, correct?
Yes, the new movie was, it came to me many, many years ago at an autism conference in Chicago when a young man came up and said, I work in Merck's MMR lab and here is a story that you will want to hear. And it was the story of Merck's fraud in connection with the mumps vaccine. And my job at that time, when I was still practicing science, was to make sure that these stories got in front of public interest lawyers, people involved in False Claims Act cases, for example. And that's what I did. So I would pass them on, and then they would be adjudicated on their merits. And this story went to court, And it languished in court for over a decade. And then I decided, you know what, I'd written the screenplay in 2012. I finished it with Terry Rossio. Terry has written some little-known stories like Shrek and Pirates of the Caribbean and Aladdin and Godzilla versus King Kong. And so we finished the story, and it still was waiting. The court case was playing out. I didn't want to do anything that might compromise the court case. But eventually I said, that's enough. This is, my service, my duty was to the public. It wasn't to Merck, and it wasn't to the government, it wasn't to the lawyers, and it wasn't even to the whistleblowers. It was to the public who had been defrauded. And so I decided it was time to get on and make the film. And that's how Protocol 7 came to be.
Protocol 7, and where can they find it and watch it?
Where you can go. Now, it's with all of our films, there has been a bold attempt at
so they're doing to the film what all your
public.
films, what they did to you years ago, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's what's happening.
And the cancel culture. So they learned from Vax. With Vax, they made a big mistake, and that was they got it banned from Tribeca, and then De Niro went on television saying everybody should watch this film, and it blew up. And that was the De Niro effect. And, and they learned from that. So now they do very little. They work in the background, and they cancel you from the inside out. So with the movie theaters, with the critics, and that's just, that's business. So we've got to do everything we can to get the movie out. And so we built our own platform, yow.tv, yow.tv, and that's where people can go to see the film and my other films. So yow.tv, and yow is a sort of hybrid Eastern word for freedom. So it's a platform.
I love that.
It's a platform for independent filmmakers who might otherwise find it difficult to get their films out there.
I see that. So one question I know people ask me a lot is, how do you think Dr. Andy felt and experienced during that period of time when your world was turning upside down, but yet you inside knew the truth? That must have been a hellacious time for you. I can't imagine.
It was a very difficult time. There's no doubt. When, you're having all the letters after your name stripped away one by one, and your papers retracted for alleged fraud, which is absolute nonsense. And there's nothing you can do about it. At that time, cancel culture was unheard of. So there was, and this isn't a sort of feel sorry for Andy Wakefield, it's just a fact of historical.
Well, it's a fact of what you lived through.
There was me on one side, this rather naive young physician thinking, well, the government will find this interesting. And on the other side, there was the governments of the World Health Organization, UNESCO, all of these things, UNICEF, the pharmaceutical industry, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association. It was not a fair fight. The balance was,
No.
However, you've got to not only survive all of that, you've got to thrive. You've got to show them that it doesn't matter how you feel, you've got to appear to thrive in that environment. And because you have that obligation to your colleagues who might be considering whether to pursue this.
Not everybody had that, though.
Well, and then COVID came along.
Yes.
And of course, two things in my experience have changed the whole dynamic of this. And that has been film, on the one hand, because you can reach a lot of people, and then COVID. COVID had such a dramatic impact. It'll turn out to be the biggest mistake the apparatchik, they ever made. Because what it did was to enlighten the world to what was really going on. Not only was this a synthetic hybrid chimeric virus that they'd created in a lab, which, they denied and then were exposed for their cover-up, but also they'd planned in some way this vaccine for a very, very long time, in a way of introducing an otherwise intolerable level of risk in messenger RNA or mRNA-based technologies. And they got them in through vaccination, or one can hardly even call it vaccination, genetic manipulation. And when I started, there were a handful of people worldwide who were prepared to question this or raise the thorny issue of vaccine safety. Now it's more than half the adult population of the world. are not complying with the recommendations.
Yeah.
We're not going to have the fourth, fifth booster. We're not going to do it.
Isn't it true when it becomes personal, too, people take action?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
Yeah.
only for most people.
Correct.
And that's the tragedy, because it will affect so many more people. And they won't wake up, and they won't know, and they won't care until it's too late. Until they get ill or someone close to them gets ill, and it's too late. And so
you can't ignore what's happening right now.
Yeah, you can't. And so, but the upside, the silver lining to this dark cloud of COVID is that it has woken so many people up. And so doctors, great doctors like Peter McCullough and others, Paul Marek, have joined ranks. I mean, Paul Marek sat on a very eminent physician, head of the intensive care unit of the liver transplant program in Pittsburgh for the longest time, which was, that is one of the best units in the world. And he loses his job because he questions the narrative, won't go along with the protocol, wants to treat his patients as individuals based upon his experience, not upon some insurance company protocol.
Yeah.
And I sat on a stage with him the other day, and he said, a year ago, I would have said you were mad. But now? So the world has changed. It's moved on, and people have woken up, and they're never going to be able to undo the massive loss of public confidence that they have accrued in
How
vaccine.
can you possibly?
You can't. You'll never get it back.
No.
And it'll only get worse and worse and worse.
That's right. One of the things, we're here at the Nitric Oxide Summit, actually the Freedom Summit, and John Hewlett created this product called Cardio Miracle. One thing that I'm amazed about, because I always look at who's behind the brand, one thing that I'm amazed about with John is he leaves no stone unturned. He is fearless about finding the answer. So who would have thought he created this product 14 years ago? And now it's being used in its entirety, I believe, to what we're living today, right?
Yes.
Because you can't, all these different films, that are showing up and showing everybody what's happening, really what's happening globally. And so one of the things I think is interesting is the nitric oxide in the product. Can you talk about nitric oxide for a moment?
I'm going to steal this right now.
Yes.
This is it, guys. I missed out this morning, so I'm taking one right now.
You got it.
Nitric oxide. This is really interesting because all of my research background, the reason I got into Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis was because of studying the microvascular endothelium. We've got cells that line the blood vessels of the gut, and suggesting impertinently that the cause of Crohn's disease wasn't some bug in the gut, but some virus getting into the endothelium of the blood vessels, the cells that line the blood vessels, and injuring them. And the blood vessels blocking off. Of course, when you cut off the blood supply to something, the tissues that are dependent on that, they die.
Yeah.
And if that's in the gut, that produces an ulcer. And then it really takes off. And I was fascinated by this. It was the beginning of endothelial cell biology. And this is around sort of mid to late 1980s. And then, of course, came the Nobel Prize-winning discovery that nitric oxide
1998,
was this key triggering molecule in the endothelium, in the intact endothelium, endothelial-derived relaxing factor, as it was known before, I believe. And it was a huge discovery, opened up a world of research into the regulation of blood vessels and their state of tension or of relaxation. And so it fit in exactly with what I was doing. In parallel with our discovery that there was this underlying microvascular injury in Crohn's disease and colitis, and that it may be a reservoir of viral infection, specifically measles virus infection. And that's still a discussion that's out there at the moment. Then ways of dealing with that were also emerging, enhancing nitric oxide, getting nitric oxide or its precursors into the system to allow your blood vessels to dilate and to repair and to overcome this injury. So it was a very, very exciting time. We never got to use this, sadly.
Wow.
in Crohn's disease because I by that stage I'd moved on and the discovery 1998 had yet to be made and reported. But now, what a perfect opportunity.
Wow.
So when I was talking to John about this the other day, there was suddenly this meeting of minds.
Yes.
And he said, well, we've got these cases. We've got these cases of Crohn's disease that have done really, really well. And so it would be lovely to see that put into some formal clinical trial to test out the efficacy, because so many of the studies that have been done with nitric oxide and nitric oxide enhancing products have been shown to be of benefit, certainly in animal models and in certain human conditions. So,
I think it's interesting, Dr. Avery Jackson. So we're embarking upon, this month actually, putting together multiple case studies with a factory and factory workers and so on that really don't take care of themselves overall. So that's going to be fascinating to include you in that. Because I think with your eyes onto the different areas really that nitric oxide is so exponentially important, that's going to be fascinating to see how we can pull all that together. But that's exactly what's happening. People like John and companies are really going in and saying, hey, what kind of science and what kind of studies can I do to prove? I already know it works, right? They're already knowing and seeing that people are experiencing extraordinary results with the product. But let's really see what's going on at the cellular level or results-orientated studies. Yeah, so I think you're exactly right.
I think that's the key now, is to put it into formal studies that give, otherwise people will be able to say, well, that's anecdotal, or this will be other. And of course, the pharmaceutical industry won't be happy.
Yeah, that's exactly
until
true.
They offer to buy John out.
Yeah, exactly.
And that will happen.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's successful, that will happen. They will make that offer. And
he's definitely making a dent.
Good for him.
Right now, definitely. And his goal is to help people like you, to get behind those freedom fighters that are on the front line, because we know that this isn't something that's going to end a month or two down the road, right? This is a fight that you've been in how many years?
30 years now.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for all you're doing. Anything else that you can share with? I know Cardio Miracle has over 700 nutrients, over 58 new ingredients. You just added lion's mane, glutathione, NAC. So those all synergistically, along with the other nutrients, help to push the nitric oxide, the effects of it, the tips of your toes, top of your head, and so on. But the studies that we looked at with the heart and blood pressure, that was absolutely fascinating. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm very grateful. I mean, I've had my own issues, which, I've always been very, very healthy, and made a big mistake of one thing you never do is exercise when you have a viral infection.
Oh, okay.
And I did that, and I developed a viral myocarditis as a consequence, and I'll never know what caused it. I mean, common things are common, but I'll never know what caused it because I didn't get tested, but I did get very ill. And this has been part of my regular recovery program. And I've no doubt, even I can't say categorically because I've done a lot of things. And I've worked very closely with Peter McCullough, who really turned this around. But Cardio Miracle has been part of that. And I'm sure it's been part of my recovery as well. So
that's fantastic.
So it comes not only from the view of a scientist and a gastroenterologist, but also someone who's been using it to their own benefit. So,
well, thank you so much. And I know a person like you with a scientific doctorate in the background, when he put together the 3 scientific papers to talk about the vitamin D increase when people start using the product. And like Dr. Judy always says, this is just food.
Yeah.
Nothing
we should
in
be taking
here.
This anyway.
Yeah, there's nothing in here that is going to be harmful or damaging or, it's going to have contraindication in your medication. We're talking about real food. And what I appreciate also is that every ingredient is researched, and then he goes and gets the finest ingredients that he possibly can. And the other thing that's interesting about this is, many times through COVID, it was difficult to source ingredients. John right now has warehouses full of the ingredients, so he doesn't run out because he knows we're in trouble. Our world is in trouble. And if we have access to a food, then we can survive. Water and food and air. So I think he's got a fantastic plan in mind to really blanket the globe with something that's going to make a difference and support people like yourself. And I'm so excited to see your film tonight. That's going to be amazing. We have a room full of experts over there, your colleagues that are excited to see you today and love on you. And this is going to be a wonderful weekend.
Well, it's going to be fine. It's great to be here. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much, Dr. Andy. You're
Thank you.
amazing.